Welcome back. House and Senate GOP leaders returning to Capitol Hill this week to work on the Republicans' immigration enforcement bill. That's the reconciliation package after missing the president's June 1st deadline. The legislation was held up by the planned implementation of the president's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. Some senators balked at it and left town. But now the DOJ says it will abide by court rulings made about the fund, including a judge temporarily halting any payments and any work on the fund. It comes as Senate Majority Leader John Thune urged President Trump to scrap the idea altogether to help advance Reconciliation 2.0. Joining me now is Wisconsin Congressman Bryan Steil. He's the chairman of the House Administration Committee. Mr. Chairman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So what happened last week with this this anti-weaponization fund and the fact that you couldn't get the reconciliation package delivered by the June 1st deadline?
I think a lot of us have been frustrated with how Biden's DOJ operated, but the Trump administration has come to the table and accepted the judge's ruling in this case, has backed away from it. I think that really unlocks the door for reconciliation to move through the Senate, followed by the House later this week or next. It's absolutely essential that we're providing the funding to secure the U.S.-Mexico border. The Democrats would love to gum up the works on this. The fact that the president said he's going to recognize and follow the judge's ruling in this case, I think really unlocks this to make sure that we're providing the necessary funds for the men and women of Border Patrol to secure the border, which the Democrats have fought tooth and nail to prevent us from doing.
Mm-hmm. So Senate negotiators reportedly close to finalizing the Section 702 of FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, after months of failed efforts to reach an agreement. Are you expecting that to get over the finish line? The short-term extension set to expire June 12th.
Section 702 of FISA is an absolutely essential program. We made significant reforms to this now 2 years ago. And if we look back at the data of how those reforms are performing, you can go back and look, and they're actually working quite well. At the same time, 702 is an essential program to make sure that U.S. intelligence agencies are able to collect essential information on foreigners who are operating outside the United States of America. This type of surveillance of foreigners outside the United States is essential to keep the homeland safe at a period of time when we're in kinetic conflict with Iran and other countries around the globe. I'm of the belief that Senate negotiators, in consultation here with the House, that we're going to reach a resolution if additional reforms are required, but at the same time, making sure that we do not see this program lapse. It's an absolutely essential program. President Trump has spoken about the importance of making sure we move this through, and I'm hopeful instead of having a short-term extension, we get a true medium or long-term extension. 18 months to 5 years would be essential to make sure that our foreign intelligence agencies can actually be out there doing the hard work of keeping the United States of America safe.
So just to be clear, you expect FISA to happen, and you expect this reconciliation package on immigration to get over the finish line as well. When would you expect that to take place?
The sooner the better. I think it's going to take place over the next handful of weeks, whether or not that's this week or next. But I think for sure by the 4th of July, we'll see it.
I see. And Mr. Chairman, you also introduced a legislative package aimed at increasing transparency and security in campaign finances. Tell us about this. I know these proposals come as Republicans have scrutinized Democrat fundraising. In fact, the ActBlue over allegations of potential foreign donations. ActBlue CEO is going to testify before your committee next week. What are you expecting here?
Well, when the CEO comes in and testifies before our committee next week on June 10th, I think we have an opportunity to set the record straight for the American people. ActBlue, the online Democratic fundraising platform, has raised roughly $20 billion since it was created for Democrats and Democratic causes. Our campaign finance laws weren't written for the digital era. Legislation that we have put forward to provide transparency in this space makes meaningful and substantive reforms that I think are needed. For example, if an individual is making a donation online, the name of the credit card should match the name of the individual. The 3 or 4-digit code on the back of the card that provides security should be required. We should remove the de minimis standard so that we know all the donations that are going. That prevents smurfing in the system. This is about transforming our campaign finance laws to the digital age, providing transparency, and preventing the fraud that we are so concerned exists inside some of these online platforms.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to be a factor in the midterms. I mean, here we are in primary season, Congressman. Socialist Democrat Francesca Hong is running for governor in your state. She's been endorsed by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Her policies include free child care, a minimum wage of $20 an hour, publicly owned grocery stores, obviously increasing taxes on the rich and the highest earners. And she wants to ban the construction of data centers. Congressman, your thoughts?
Well, the Democratic primary for governor in the state of Wisconsin mirrors Democratic primaries in my congressional seat and others across the country. Radical Democrats are moving further and further to the left, and that's where the base of the Democratic Party is. You can look no further than the mayor of New York City to recognize where the base of the Democrats are. And so it's these types of policies that we're working against, and we need to make sure that we're out there working through this midterm to overcome these types of radical Democratic proposals, is why I'm actually really excited. President Trump is coming to the state of Wisconsin this Friday to talk about the reforms that we're making at the national level. He's coming to Derek Van Orden's district, another competitive seat that is going to be our opportunity to hold the House and to continue to advance President Trump's agenda nationally.
And your thoughts in terms of the overall midterm elections come November, after this whole redistricting story, I think gave some boost to Republicans. Congressman, how are you feeling about holding the majority in the House?
I'm actually very bullish that we're going to be able to hold the House and the Senate. Why is that? I think we've actually delivered on a lot of the reforms that we needed to, from the tax reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill to securing the U.S.-Mexico border. And at the same time, Democrats continue to show how crazy they are. Crazy politics versus common sense proposals by the right will be the determining factor, and I think that's why Republicans will hold the House and the Senate this fall.
And how reliant are you on thinking that affordability is not, the main talking point, and that oil and gas comes down? I mean, there's a morning note this morning that I'm reading right now from Piper Sandler, and they write, through the summer, the Strait of Hormuz will stay functionally closed. Only a fraction of normal ship traffic will find its way through. Ship traffic should increase modestly over time, but it will most likely remain far short of pre-war. Which leads to ever tighter fundamentals of global oil. So the analyst writes, if oil futures sold off some $20 a barrel in the last 3 weeks or so, we expect prices to retrace all of that and then some, Congressman.
Affordability is front and center, but as it comes to the oil markets, let's remember that it's conservatives, Republicans, and President Trump that are working to unlock American energy and unleash it into the market. In fact, the United States is actually producing more energy than we consume. This was a position that I think people would have had a difficult time wrapping their heads around going back to the Obama administration. But instead, we put forward pro-growth energy policies that really unleashed American energy, providing the energy that we need here. We need to look exactly as to what we're trading and how we're shipping, but making sure that we're providing that affordability is essential, and Republicans are leading the way.
Great point on that one. Congressman, good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bryan Steil joining us. We'll be right back.